Next. And the fun for me, Nephalem Rifts, again, it's not just the I look at the minimap half the time as well. But for me it's the clickables. I played this for the clickables. Right. I'm not just looking for the fastest exit or something. Yeah, but that's why I, I mean, think about it though. Because so there's two ways to play, right? One is if you play Nephilim and you only go for keys, then it's the same idea that you play Greater Rifts for only loot at the end. So for me, the most fun of it all is to make sure that you're doing something completely different in the Nephilim Rift, which is not just take the end results. That's the thing. And that's why they made visions, by the way. They made visions because the floor is smaller, so they would expect you to loot more regular drops, rather than skipping them completely, because the Nephilim Rifts drop them everywhere. The faster you go, the less efficient it is to click on like the regular drops, especially, right? So they made visions with smaller floors, except the Shrouded Moor, right? Except the usual Shrouded Moor problem. So it's just more fun if you actually click the clickables, and that's where also some people would ask, how do you fix your reusable parts problem? Well, you can go in reverse, but when you go in reverse from crystals to reusable parts, that's really bad, generally speaking. You actually want to go from reusable parts to crystals, or the arcane dust to crystals. You don't want to go in the reverse. When you go in the reverse, it really means that, especially for people that used to do split bounties a lot, that means that they semi-contradict their understanding, because they're not they used to be the best at the reusable parts. What is happening? Oh, I thought they glitched the entire elite pack as I was talking about something. So people used to farm like split bounties where the bounty caches and the challenge rift per week give them enough reusable parts, right? But like a lot of people who start making multiple classes, making all like 42 builds especially, they will gradually run out of reusable parts because they run too many greater rifts, right? Too many without doing the bounty caches. So it semi contradict those people that are super super fast at doing everything. But then they're not everything though, because their reusable parts is the opposite. And then the pet came along where the pet salvages stuff for you. And it even says it right there in the node that it helps on all three colors. So you should actually take, and then some people are like, oh, you should take that node ASAP. But then when they take that node ASAP, they don't get enough like regular armor racks and weapon racks that are like on the way. Like even like on the way. I know I go out of the way to click on every single one, just about, right? I get it. I do way too much. But some people don't even do half of it. And then they go backwards and in reverse, asking the crystals. Yeah, yeah, but it's also still not enough. The reusable parts are still not enough. Like a lot of people go reverse. 5. Nice. It's only enough when you get enough goblin floors, but that's like talking about how we used to want goblin packs, you know. It's not, you cannot just say that, oh, visions, we're talking about goblin floors. Because more than half the time people don't even loot regular drops in visions inclusive. The only time they ever like slow themselves down is exactly the goblin floors, which is so funny because that is actually the most inefficient floor to slow down on, right? It you People rebalance their time, right? They don't they they twist it. They're like, "Oh, I'm super fast. Every floor I skip until the end chest." But then in the totality of the time spent, right? In the totality of the time spent, if you combine all the other floors being super fast, but then the goblin floor is the slowest one, you have to put the equal slash equal or like compare the time. So it's like 6 seconds on a goblin floor if you're like minimum 6 seconds on the goblin floor versus one other floor that you play the pony crusader. Let's say you ride the pony or you play the in jump, right? At some point, if the in jump falls off on a goblin floor, that's terrible. You know, like so if you're an in jump player, especially the in jump person, it's a contradiction because the in jump playing is to go as fast as you can to maintain that always. Oops, I clicked that, so I'm gonna convert. You know, and I'm not trying to like find faults, but like it's like people don't um like they don't say the unsaid. They only say the things that are like, you know, obviously time is money. They don't say the downside of what they're doing. They only say the upside of what they're doing. And I'm not like being negative. It's like pros and cons. You need to have both sides. And the both sides is not talking like what are the negatives. You have to talk about what are the personal negatives. Like what is the person doing that slow them down also. So like I want goblin floors. I obviously want goblin floors. But when the in jump falls off on a goblin floor, that means you're not even fast enough in the first place. Like, it's not about skipping the goblin floor like people skip everything else. It's more like people equate farming enough only because they get enough goblin floors. But then they skip the other legendaries, which in totality, right, in the whole long run, just like EXP per hour. EXP per hour exists in the calculation of your per hour, right? It's not, well, it is per auric closing, but the phrase is per hour. So when your visions per hour as well is mostly talking about the goblin floor for materials and gems, right? Then what about the other massive legendaries, right? Of course, if you play a character class that you are not going to do anything for it, right? Then all you need is the T16 build. So that's their excuse, though. That's their excuse. Aside from obviously keys are keys, and bounty mats are bounty mats, right? Like you want to spam your bounty mats here, you want to have like 10k, 20k, 30k of these, right? So all you want is the end chest to go to the next thing to split between Nephalem Rift and Visions, right? That's the goal. But then what is the problem though is that what if you get like multiple floors that are past past the ones that are not dropping enough. So the first few floors don't drop enough. But then you go very far, like let's say floor 12, and you actually skip like tons of stuff in the floor 12 or well between like floor 8, floor 9, right? You skip things because like I said about the in jump, right? So you skip those. And then visions per hour, how many legendaries have you skipped? Right? We're not talking about spending the time to salvage them. I'm just talking about like the materials because in the materials, in the crafting section, it does have forgotten souls. So the only thing people can blame, what they will blame is that the pets don't salvage legendaries for you as an option, which is another quality of life that they could have done in if they had not stopped the processing quality of life stuff for Diablo 3. They may not. But anyway, right? Is that then they will blame the pets to not do what they would do for these four already. Why can't the pet do the fifth thing? Right? That's what they will say. But in terms of per hour, like anything slash hour, we have to look at not making any excuses and compare both sides and connect where the in jump fails to continue. So then we cannot just say, oh, we're gonna skip over the fact that the the goblin floor exceeds the number of seconds that you usually would not exceed ever, right? Because you would click on everything. Like you click as many things as you can, probably even like all of it. But then in but then you're so good at clicking the goblin floor on the ground, why can't you click a few more per floor? I don't mean to pick up everything on each floor, right? You don't have to do that because it takes too much time. But if somebody is clicking like literally everything possible. Like let's say the torch map, for example. The torch map also delays people, right? So I cannot blame that one because we all struggle on the torch floor 90% of the time. We struggle on that. But let's say we get the shrouded moor and the goblin floor popped up on the shrouded moor. People probably click more of the stuff and spend triple the time to get everything sorted rather than clicking a few more legendaries per floor, such that maybe you are full by the time you get to the chest, right? Some people do that. Some people even do the Pony Crusader I've seen where they would go down to the chest and then they will go backwards and loot as many things backwards as they can if they're min-maxing. That's better than not doing it at all. That's better than not filling your whole 30 items, right? At least fill the 30 items to get your bare minimum without just asking for the goblin floors. Yeah. So that's how I rate the situation. It's like I get that people have a goal of keys, like yeah, I get it. Or they usually don't play that class anyway. So like if you make a inner Raven monk, all you care about is you have a viable T16, like a working T16 that you never die, not even the explosions, not even the random explosions, just enough to do what you need to do, right? Then of course that's the designated driver, right? That's like a designated driver. So in the designated driver, your keys per hour makes sense to it. But if you're playing the key farming, like whether it's visions, on the class that you're pushing, you should probably loot like at least half the loot that you are not looting. Because even ancient pieces are good. Like this one. I mean, the dexterity sucks, but I mean, the primary stats here suck, but imagine if this was a better ancient, right? I'm sure you've seen like really good ancient pieces that matches the primal, right? Like pseudo primals or near primals, right? So even collecting like randomly, just like losing the in jump timing on a goblin floor, you would loot some stuff. So for me, Nephalem Rifts, for me, it is to click the clickables where my crystals normally is the lowest. But your reserve part should never be the lowest. Your crystals should be the lowest because it's 1 for 1. When your pet does it, it's 1 for 1. So it should most likely be the lowest. The when this is not the lowest, that means you're doing too many speed GRs. Like too many. And it's not about whether you're high paragon. Like obviously when you're high paragon, you do too many GRs. Well, of course, you grind it for the paragons because at some point you have to do like 10 to 20, right, to get the each paragon or whatever. I never get to that point, so I don't know what I'm talking about. But in a sense of the crystals, if your crystals are exceeding, right, even at a low paragon, like so like me, for example, if I'm at 1.2k but my reusable parts is a problem, right, then why would I do crystals to reusable parts though? That just doesn't make any sense because you're doing 1 for 1. So eventually, when you need to get your guardians corrected or you need to craft all guilds, then now you have two problems. You're gonna run out of crystals and reusable parts because you went the other way. You went crystals to reusable parts at a low paragon. At a high paragon, I get it. Like you have 40,000 crystals. So let's say you're at 4K paragon or 5K paragon or 7K, whatever, right? Then you have 40,000 crystals versus 5,000 reusable parts. That I can get because you are grinding paragons that actually need so many greater rifts that you cannot spend the time to do for reusable parts. But when you're low paragon, it should it should always be crystals being the least. Always. I'm just the exception because I started rebalancing faster. Like this screen is an exception right now. It's because I also don't make too many builds. So this is where I haven't crafted a lot. But when you craft more, your crystals will fall behind. And that's why people will ask, how do you get crystals? Well, you get crystals from the other two. Well, and then the question would be, how do you get reusable parts? Well, the old way doesn't really exist anymore. The full bounties way doesn't really exist anymore because people get interrupted by visions. So obviously the reusable parts is a problem. The other two isn't a problem because even 1 for 1, you may get 15 at a time, where people might say, well, 15 at a time is pretty good. It isn't bad, but it's also slow, right? So they complain the like the wrong thing or the opposite thing that they used to be very good at with the reusable parts. Yeah.
Hey lady, I got some new things. You should take a look.
But I do visions. I'm only gonna do visions on the other one because when I make the wizard, because eventually I'm gonna want more drops as the wizard, and I don't want to burn myself out. I can already burn myself out with Nephalem Rifts like this. So on the other one, I'm gonna do more, like, hopefully more visions. Even though it's gonna be fast to do both sides as well. Oh, let's see the chests. I want to see this. Or the elites. Please be an ancient usable. Please. Nope. Still no.
I'm still waiting.
I remember a few seasons ago, I got a regular Nephalem Rift drop of that chest piece, and I got the like really good ancient all resist version. Let's say if you only play DH in a season, which craft material do you find a bottleneck? I mean, it depends on how much you need to craft the like the three different sets to the build, right? So like if you need to craft both All Guilds and Captain Crimson, then eventually you'll run out. Even if you play just one class, you'll run out eventually for both the materials. The the reusable parts and the crystals. If you have to craft both All Guilds and Captain Crimson, right? Eventually, right? And if they're not perfect, especially for the helmets, let's say you have to do the helmet, All Guild helmets, right? If you have to do All Guild helmets, you're gonna run low
I'm still waiting.
because of the helmets RNG of the variants.
Need more time.
So people will run low on both reusable parts and the crystals because again, my rants for 15-20 minutes
I'm still
will
waiting.
still connect back.
Not ready yet. Sweet revenge.
So if you have to craft a lot of All Guild helmets,
Need more time.
that's the killer. That's one of the killers anyway.
Not ready yet.
So
I'm still
it
waiting.
depends on whether you craft a lot of, well, if you needed to craft a lot of All Guild helmets for like
Need more time.
the what, the traps or something. Unless you got a really nice helmet already, um, from like the Natalia side. So then you would do chest and shoulder or something, right? And chest is a little easier, or like even way easier than the helmet, right? So then the chest is a better option.
I'm still waiting.
Because for me, most of my gear on the other sets are done. All I need is the crafting things, the Captain Crimson and All Guilds. And depending on the element that I play, then I mean still need Guardians because I'm low Paragon, right? But for most people, you're already at, you know, high Paragon enough to skip the Guardians already.
Not ready yet.
So the only other one that you have to fix is the All Guilds. If it's not already